前澳洲电信网络转型项目负责人，他今天演讲的题目是网络重构如何向网络自治转型。OK。
Ni hao, good morning, everyone. My name is Guy Lupo, and until recently I was the former head of network as a service at Telstra for 8 years. Now these days I'm an independent evangelist, a promoter of the concepts of network as a service and the journey. It is my pleasure to be here this morning, and thank you for giving me your time. I'm going to take you through my presentation today. I would like to note that I no longer work for Telstra, therefore I do not represent Telstra here in this forum. It is very important. I'll move on. You heard from my colleague George and other presentations about the importance of the journey and what the levels are to get from where you are today into this autonomous network future. The levels as we see them today here, and the importance of the network as a service. George mentioned earlier about our project in Telstra. We did this. We turned one after the other the domains of technology in Telstra to look like an open API from TM4. We use TM4 open API and TM4's help to achieve this journey. And that was the very first step of a long journey that is still to come. What I am going to show you today is not necessarily what I call the what, but the how. What is your vehicle? How to actually get there from a program perspective and the things you have to consider. Before we go and dive into how, I want to talk about the use case. We all talk about the slice. But what is a slice? So for all of my colleagues here from the network space, and I have been spending my last 8 years in network, we do all have these silos. Different business units from time to time: access, core, towers, aggregation network, core networks, clouds, private clouds. In some cases, there are even multiple business units or multiple companies that are amalgamated together. The real question is how to actually build a slice, a plateau, the green plateau, on top of which you can actually start staging future autonomous products, networks, and AI enabled. That's before you get to actually tie them into the IT part and order them and build them. How do you create a platform for your network? In order to do that, and that's important, and when we start with the spaghetti, we all know the spaghetti, we all have that spaghetti, we don't have many different programs and projects intertwined with each other. How do we get to that future that can hyperscale? What you need to remember from the slide pack is the word network refactoring. The word refactoring comes from software. Software technology is used to change software on the fly while it's being in operation for many years. Same applies to your practice. You have to learn how to change the network step by step in stages. You will not jump from where you are today to autonomous in one day. As we heard before, it's a 4-year journey, if not more. This is a very important slide, and I would like to stay here a little bit before I'll jump into more details. By the way, the slide pack is quite big. I'm hoping that you'll get it later as part of the distribution. I'm going to cover the top 2 things from each slide, but it's a lot of reference material I hope you'll be able to use. And by the way, find me later if you have any questions. I'm here for the next 2 days. We all start at the spaghetti space. Every telco has it. We know this. It's all the programs and projects done many times. In order to get to autonomous, which is what we want, an autonomous slice, you'll go through stages in your lives. Each stages in your program will probably require acquiring of technology, contracting resources, but it would have a different theme. And that's very important. The first spaghetti thing is find out your domains. Make sure you get an agreement with your business. What are the domains? You will start in technology domains. That's what it is, and it would be very vendor related. Your access might be one vendor, your core another vendor, etc., etc. But at least understanding those and what type of APIs and automation capabilities they have today. The next step you'll move, and that's where you rely heavily on TM4 now going forward. And as you can look at the NAS Component Suite 909, which we did, strongly recommend, is where you go to the actual abstraction phase. That's where you take your technology domains, technology vendors, and you start working with the vendors to create open APIs instead of specific APIs. That would lead you to a network as a service. That's where your services are defined and shareable and reusable, but they're not yet automated. And usually, if this was technology network engineering, this phase will already be network and IT converged. That's a work that has to be done between network and IT. To move to the next phase, we heavily looked forward to Etsy ZSM architecture, because Etsy ZSM architecture that was built in the Etsy group actually has this concept, and I invite you to look it up, concepts of domains. You don't see that very well, but this is an end-to-end service domain. This is a compositor. This is a service provider domain. This is a management domain. When you look into this architecture and you move to composition, this is where you have to start the orchestration problem. And I'll talk to it. Because you'd have to orchestrate multiple domains. That's where you'd also meet the word DevOps. Because that's where network engineering, IT, and operation now has to start working together. But the journey is not yet done. As you go from that and you start getting a fabric where you can start composing, you are not yet autonomous. You already have domains, you already have inventories automated, capacity automated, event collection, but you're not able yet to make decisions. To move to the next level of autonomous, and I deliberately put the front page of AWS, because on the front page of AWS you can see you have compute, storage, and other capabilities. Underneath compute, when you get a S3 or a EC2 capability, it's autonomously operated, it's hyperscale. Why is that? These companies have moved from the level of composition, order to activate, and are no longer doing order to activate the way they did, but they actually separate the practices into what's called order to reserve and activate to assure. It's very important. The closed loop lives in their ability to define a tree of what ifs, what happens if this fails, and that's autonomous. But only after you've gone through those phases. I don't think there's a shortcut from spaghetti to autonomous. It's a journey. I'll focus on the two important things on each slide as I go through the stages. As I said, the slide pack is more, and I'm here for the rest of the day. In Spaghetti Land, the most two important things that we've done to start getting ourselves where we are, to understand how to go forward, was actually to do a survey, conduct a survey, and map all the technology vendors. Believe it or not, it sounds trivial, but it wasn't. We had to actually get everybody to expose a lot of information. And the next thing is we also map the organization and the program, the delivery. The programs that run through the business know this map better than anyone else. They're your biggest friends. People tend to forget the program and project managers do not. They're your biggest friends. They know where everything is. Use them. Because I'll tell you exactly where to find all the APIs and all the stuff they've done before. When you get into the abstraction stage and you have to start looking at abstracting, the most important things we've done was to contract IT and network on a standard pattern. And we presented that in the TM forum, and we won an award on that as well on the circuit breaker, we call this, like a light switch. We found a way with IT on what to do and how to transition from one pattern to another as we refactor the network. Very important contract with IT. And pattern and agree on service exposure. Not just the open API, but what is the format of a service? How does a service look like? And for this purpose, we actually created a group that helped us design these. This stage is a stage that we were on the way to achieve. In Telstra, by the way, the network as a service was done and published. There's an article on Telstra you can find on the internet how we went live with it and exposed several services. The next phase, I am not there anymore, but I'm knowing that the work continues, but I don't know to what extent, is to get to this automation and the shell fabric. But what you have to do now is to start converging your capacity planning and forecasting process into the infrastructure domain. That's where you actually start realizing SDN and the word network as a fabric. Only when the network is becoming a fabric, you will be able to get to do composition properly and move towards autonomous. And last but not least, how to get to autonomous, okay? And actually did a proof of concept many years ago to show how we recover from faults. The most important thing is to identify the end-to-end services domain. Find an offer that you can actually decompose into its component and down to the actual network components and use that as a use case, right? And map the customer requirements to what if scenario. This type of service design does not exist today. We still design a network construction, IT, and operation. To be autonomous, you have to actually think about the customer. In networks, you have to understand how the customer is going to experience the product and what happens if it fails, and then walk backwards on what do you have to automate. This way, you will avoid automating your entire operation. You don't have money to do that. This is a bit of a future, but I thought I will share that future just before I finish the presentation. If all goes well, to my opinion, and we do get to autonomous, we will be nothing more than just an operating system. I sometimes call it telcos, telco OS. We will have network, compute, storage, resources under a fabric, able to consume. We will have OSS microservices, functions, inventory functions, error functions, escalation functions. We'll have BSS as a service, functions, 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 above a unified open API layer. But what's important here is this, the autonomous product. This is where we no longer build an order in IT. Someone will build an application autonomous with all the ifs and thens and chain a firewall, a CPE, a URL filter, events, internet, put it in a closed loop and deliver. And that's where we're all supposed to be. And the important part is that if you plug the AI and machine learning, the AI and machine learning can start understanding this tree and improving faults and write new routines of what if 5 times fail to recover, don't use that anymore. So it's not only understanding faults in the network, it's the actual purpose of this autonomous is to understand faults in your autonomy itself. I won't go in details with that, my time is up, but I will just draw your attention to this table and the poster after that, which you can use as a reference. But this captures my entire presentation in terms of in each phase, what do you need to expose, okay? What type of architecture you can use, what type of automation you need to consider, etc. What type of API, what do you do with your vendors, what's your level of reuse. And for each phase, you'll see that I've captured for you what you need to consider. Hopefully you can use that as somewhat of a roadmap towards your autonomous journey. And that's the poster you can also use with some best practices. And with that, I would like to thank you for your time today. Thank you very much.
谢谢刚才的精彩演讲，谢谢您，谢谢。